squabble.
Uncle Jerome soon turned into one of the most beloved characters in the hit series Snowfall, with many fans convinced that his role drew inspiration from a real-life figure known as OG Puddin', a notorious gangster, largely because of the uncanny resemblance the two shared.
Mr. Thompson was one of the most notorious drug dealers in Los Angeles, known as the Queenpin.
But the truth is, Uncle Jerome might not have been modeled after OG Puddin' at all, but rather on Daff Mosley, a well-known drug kingpin. Let's get into it. The name Daff Mosley doesn't spark recognition for most, which explains why he's rarely mentioned in discussions about Uncle Jerome's origins. Yet the deeper you dig, the more obvious it becomes that Mosley was the real inspiration, only without the heavy build and bulk that Jerome carried on screen.
Got to, you just pull him forward.
Ain't gonna fit, boss.
Why are you questioning me, huh?
What truly ties it all together is this. Daff Mosley was married to and partnered in the streets with none other than Yamaker Thompson, a powerful queenpin who left a major mark in the drug game. And if you've watched Snowfall, you'll notice Uncle Jerome's wife, Louie, is just as sharp, streetwise, and involved as her husband. This has led fans to connect the dots, suggesting that Louie's character may have actually been inspired by Yamaker Thompson.
Look at your auntie. You're a wildcat.
Daff and Yamaker quickly rose as a true power couple in the streets, starting young with Yamaker still in high school when the two hustled cannabis together. But once graduation hit, they were ready to take things further. In her memoir, Queenpin, Yamaker detailed their bold first move, writing that in 1980, she performed a sensual act on a bail bondsman named Willie to secure their very first ounce of cocaine. From there, business skyrocketed, and soon she and Daff were moving up to 4 kilos a week. With the money pouring in, life shifted fast. That same year, they tied the knot and purchased a house in Encino, California, marking a huge upgrade. By 1982, they welcomed their son Anthony, and Yamaker was living the dream she always wanted: wealth, power, a booming empire, flashy cars, and a beautiful family. Everything she and Daff had mapped out was unfolding exactly as they had envisioned.
Louie! Louie! Louie!
But like so many stories in the game, things eventually turned grim. On November 23, 1984, tragedy struck when Daff Mosley was gunned down at a car wash. The loss devastated Yamaker. Daff wasn't just her street partner, he was her whole life. Still, Yamaker understood the hustle never paused for heartbreak. If she didn't recover fast, everything they had built would collapse. So, embodying true boss energy, she regrouped and pushed the empire even further. She didn't just hold it down in LA, Yamaker took the operation to Detroit, moving serious weight and solidifying her reputation across new territory.
I went over to her house and she had a Ferrari, a turbo Porsche, every car that you could ever fantasize about. A brand new swimming pool.
Money was my power. Money was my control. And that's what controlled me, the money. And I wanted the money.
Yamaker had an entrepreneurial drive that couldn't be dimmed. It was the same kind of sharp hustle we saw in Snowfall when Louie helped Franklin run his nightclub to wash dirty money. Yamaker mirrored that in real life, starting a booming hair distribution company that authorities believed doubled as a front for laundering. And just like Louie thinking about cutting Teddy out to work directly with the Colombians, Yamaker actually pulled that move, bypassing the middleman to secure control for herself. At her peak, Yamaker Thompson was rumored to be making a staggering $1 million every week. Her reign was far bigger but there was one thing Yamaker couldn't walk away from: her son. Even while living as a fugitive, she risked it all by slipping back into town to see him at her mother's house. Then, in 1993, she made a choice that would alter everything. Her boy was finishing the 6th grade, and no matter the danger, Yamaker refused to miss that milestone.
After the death of her husband, she starts to travel around. She's spreading out across the country.
She had connections all over, the South, Atlanta, Detroit, Illinois, St. Louis.
I felt like the world was mine because now I'm doing it by myself.
She returned to LA for the graduation, trying to move quietly, but law enforcement had already anticipated her next move. They suspected she'd show, and when she did, they closed in immediately. She was arrested on the spot. Soon after, Yamaker went to trial, with 12 others indicted in a sweeping case involving conspiracy and money laundering, though she alone faced the jury. Prosecutors laid everything bare: her network, her operation, her finances, and the jury found her guilty across the board. She was sentenced to 15 years on 7 charges, set to run concurrently. Yamaker fought back with an appeal, claiming the evidence was weak and that the judge unfairly maxed her out, but the courts held firm. She was shipped off to a maximum security prison, where she would serve 12 years. In a twist, she found herself housed alongside Griselda Blanco, the infamous cocaine godmother. But instead of crumbling, Yecker transformed. Prison forced her into reflection on her choices, her empire, and everything she lost. That reflection led her to faith, and she leaned into God, choosing growth over regret. She began ministering to fellow inmates, sharing her story and offering hope to women society had cast aside. That spiritual shift carried her through until her release in 2005. Once free, she returned to South Central, not to reclaim the game, but to give back. She founded Second Chance Ministries in the very same streets where she once reigned, using her platform to spread the gospel and help others avoid the same pitfalls. Today, through her ministry, Yecker is touching lives daily, turning her past pain into purpose.
She actually disappears, leaves her son. It tells you how serious this is.
At that time in my life, I carried a gun in my Chanel purse daily.
But there was one thing Yecker couldn't walk away from: her son. Even while living as a fugitive, she risked it all by slipping back into town to see him at her mother's house. Then, in 1993, she made a choice that would alter everything. Her boy was finishing the 6th grade, and no matter the danger, Yecker refused to.
She makes the mistake a mother would make, because a good would never have allowed her feelings for her son to get in the way of staying free from the law. She comes back to California for his graduation from school. She is now an evangelical minister, helping people who have had drug addictions, who have had problems, who get out of jail, who can't find a job.
These days, Yecker is remarried and living an entirely different life. Her son Anthony grew up to take a completely separate path from his parents. He's now a professional skateboarder, carving out success in his own lane. But beyond Jamaica's story, fans believe a few other Snowfall characters were also drawn from real-life figures. One name that comes up often is Leon, and many say his character loosely mirrors a man named Cornell. Cornell's upbringing in South Central LA was rough. Raised by a single mother whose unstable lifestyle had him bouncing through 7 different elementary schools. Still, he showed promise as an athlete, and by the time he was at Los Angeles High, he was already a standout on the football field. He went on to Compton College, where, as a freshman, he was named a college football All-American, showing real potential for the pros. But things derailed when his grades tanked, killing his eligibility and crushing his shot at the big leagues. That's when the streets started calling. One day, walking home, his friend, none other than Freeway Rick Ross, pulled up with an offer that would change everything. Cornell took his $1,800 school refund check and invested it into the drug trade. The move paid off quickly, and soon he was deep in the business, becoming one of Rick Ross's most trusted lieutenants. While Rick reigned as the so-called king of crack, Cornell stood beside him, helping manage the empire at the height of LA's cocaine epidemic. What neither of them realized then was that they were unknowingly moving product for the CIA. But as always, life in the game came with a steep cost.
Exactly where we were getting it from, we thought we were getting it from some Colombian guys, but 20, 30 years later, we found out that our own government was behind it.
Cornell lost 3 family members to crack addiction, and the weight of guilt began to take hold. Throughout his journey, there were always people, friends, coaches, mentors, trying to steer him away from the streets. Just as he started paying attention, dirty cops swooped in, beating and arresting him. But these weren't ordinary cops. They were part of the operation themselves, pocketing a cut of his profits. In a strange twist, Cornell caught a break. He was granted immunity in exchange for testifying against the corrupt officers. After his world collapsed, he spent the next 20 years working to rebuild himself and become a role model for the youth. He dedicated his time as a counselor, activist, and coach, eventually rising to head coach of the football team at Compton College. Now shifting back to another figure often linked to the roots of Snowfall's Uncle Jerome, OG Puddin'. Puddin' wasn't just another gangster. As a teenager, he founded the Peru Boys, a neighborhood crew that would eventually grow into one of the most notorious gangs in history, the Peru set of the Bloods. So whenever the Bloods are mentioned, Puddin's influence runs deep. He wasn't just a leader in the streets either. He was feared, ruthless, and notorious for being deadly skilled when it came to handling weapons.
But he had a fast draw with the gun. And because he's not here with us, I might say some things like, he was successful in putting some holes in some people.
He took out 5 bullets and put 1 bullet in and spun the drill, walked up to my head, right? And pulled the trigger, right? And told me, you can go. He did me and my homies like that. 1 bullet in it and pulled the trigger. Because he talking about he was in a good mood that day. But he was a psychopath.
As the head of the Pyro Boys, Puddin led with raw intensity, setting the standard by being fully active in the field himself. Under his command, the pirates stopped sitting back for problems to find them. They became the problem. Puddin sparked a flame that grew into a raging wildfire across Compton. By 1972, the city's streets would never be the same again. That was the year the real war began. Instead of waiting around for the Crips to make the first move, Puddin struck preemptively. With a small circle of loyal pirates, he rolled up on a crew of Crips and opened fire, igniting what became one of Los Angeles' bloodiest and longest-running gang rivalries. The ambush left 4 people shot, one of them dead, and several others wounded. From that moment forward, he wasn't just feared. He was the most wanted man in Compton. Weapons.
Been a leader of a gang that opposed the Crips. It was like a trophy to kill Puddin. We had targets on their back, and the cold part about having a target on your back, youngsters, you don't even know.
Every dude in the area shared the same mission, take Puddin out. But that was no easy task. Puddin was slick, always on the move, switching cars, changing spots, and never falling into a pattern. One of the craziest examples was the Red House on Pine Street. This was a notorious Crip hangout, a place where Tookie Williams and other top dogs chilled. Most folks wouldn't even drive past it, let alone stir trouble there. But Puddin made it a point to light up the Red House more than once, just to prove he feared nobody. He carried a personal hit list, aiming straight for the Crip elite, the heads of the snake. And right at the very top sat Tookie Williams. Eventually, the chance came. Puddin caught him slipping on Almond Street. With a dot, 45 in hand, he let off shots. Tookie, caught off guard, dove for cover behind a nearby house. He was quick, but not quick enough. One bullet ripped through his leg, dropping him hard and leaving him severely wounded.
I know he surprised Tookie. Surprised the heck out of Tookie. Over there on Almond Street. Shot him. Tookie didn't expect that.
The hit on Tookie sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. People were stunned. Puddin then went on a relentless spree after his right-hand Tam was killed by the Crips, vowing to bring hell to every Crip set in Compton. It escalated to the point that even a car that looked like Puddin's would clear the streets. Crips scattered without hesitation. They didn't risk waiting to see if it was him. Nobody wanted to learn the hard way.
And you had to be careful of that one person Puddin, man, because he had a green 69 Riviera. If ever we seen a green 69 Riviera, we would run whatever, because we didn't know if that was Puddin or not.
Everything came crashing down when Puddin was arrested on a heavy R charge. He was sent away, and just like that, Compton got a brief break from the chaos he had unleashed. Once Puddin walked out of prison, he wasted no time jumping back into life on the outside. That new chapter included linking up with none other than Jewel, known as the First Lady of Death Row. On the surface, it seemed like an odd pairing, but in truth, it made perfect sense. Jewel was dominating the music scene with Death Row Records, while Puddin still carried legendary status in the streets. Together, their chemistry was explosive. But the same spark that drew them together soon turned volatile. Passion and thrill gave way to conflict and disorder, until the moment no one expected. Jewel pulled a gun and shot Puddin in the Chepri.
I had went to jail for shooting this Puddin who started the Blood Gang.
She later claimed it was all self-defense, insisting that Puddin had gotten physical with her and couldn't handle her rising fame, especially as her star power kept climbing under Death Row's spotlight.
So I had a lot of wanting to kill me after I shot dude, but they don't know it was self-defense because he was beating me up and he was very violent and jealous.
At first, plenty of people believed Jewel's story. Puddin had always carried that intense aura, and with Jewel shining in the spotlight, it wasn't hard to picture tempers flaring between them. But not everyone bought it. Those who truly knew Puddin painted another picture. Yes, he had a rough edge and a heavy rep, but putting hands on women wasn't part of it. If anything, many thought the friction came from the other side. Puddin had always been surrounded by women, and even while with Jewel, he never really stopped entertaining others. That lifestyle stirred jealousy, fueled arguments, and kept drama close. Some even say Jewel wasn't the only one struggling with his divided attention, and maybe that's what really set things off. Still, despite all the turmoil, people couldn't forget the way Puddin carried himself. He had a sharp, polished style, a full afro, and walked with the confidence of someone who knew exactly who he was. Those close to him often believed that if he had chosen a different lane, he could have made it big in another way. But instead, he embraced the streets, cementing his legend, for better or worse. That bullet from Jewel didn't kill him instantly, but it left lasting scars. He pulled through, yet the injuries stuck with him and chipped away at his health over time. By 2006, the old wound finally caught up, his condition declined fast, and at only 51 years old, Puddin passed away.